you want to, you can have this reset button working. All it effectively does is to break a contact, which then acts as a soft reset for the system. I've just applied the soldering iron to each of the four connections here in order to release it from the motherboard. The only connection that you need to do to keep the system permanently on is just to connect these two wires together. That is it. The system will then stay permanently on while obviously it's receiving power. The reason that we've done that is to assist with the flattening of the board, as you see here, so that in this circumstance the batteries can be laying in this sort of area. On a standard type controller you have these shoulder buttons, and you may recall I removed one of those some time ago. When you take it out from a controller you end up with one of these. It's far too long for what we need, and also if you do disassemble it then you'll find that the rubber contact pad at the back no longer makes proper contact. In other words, it's unreliable. So if we just keep the button assembly part itself, because it's got a nice little holder, stops the button from falling out, and also as you see here there's a nice flat surface that we can put a rubber contact pad onto. So I'm going to put one of these inside the portable, use some hot glue to keep it firmly in place, and then connect a rubber top tack switch to the back and wire it up. So there's the shoulder part hot glued in place, and as you see there's plenty of movement. What I then did was to cut a small piece of 2mm perspex, put in one of the rubber top tack switches as I've done here, and then also one layer of a small piece of the perspex on each side. When that then fits inside here and is hot glued in place, it will lay reasonably flush and will be nice and responsive with the tack switch. Hot glued in place, the two tack contacts on the top, and if I just slant it very slightly you can see it's nice and responsive, and it's a good solid button to press. Let's do the other side now. To the right of the tan battery, of course, is the on-off system switch. To the right of that is the multi-port. To the right and above is the rumble pack memory switch, which is from the controller, from the little memory rumble pack. And underneath there is the headphone jack, which we've just wired up. As you see, it's very snug, but there is actually enough room for everything, and it's about as tight, I think, as we can probably reasonably get it. And here we have the view at the moment of those various ports that we've just described. Had a little bit of a issue regarding heat. I had the system working in test mode for several minutes while I was doing other bits, and the system basically reset. Upon separating the two case halves, which I just basically put some non-conductive foam to separate the two parts away from, I felt this motherboard and it was extremely hot. What that proves is that you do actually require a fan in order to pull the air out to keep the system cool. The slight downside with that is, as you see from the system here, there's nowhere really to put one. The cartridge slot at the bottom takes up most of the space. There's the switches and bits down here, and although that expansion pack could be relocated, it wouldn't gain any benefit because there's actually no more space than the width of my finger down here. So what I'm going to have to do is to cut a hole through the back of here and mount an external fan. What I'm proposing here is one of these 40mm diameter fans. It's actually from an old Dreamcast console, and it's 1 centimetre thick. It runs virtually silently, so there is that on its side, but of course what I'll need to do is to mount that and the equivalent of the back space on here, and then enclose it so that it doesn't look like a bare old computer fan. Well, this is the solution. This is what the fan assembly is going to look like. I've ended up with a nice strong piece of plastic, spray painted to suit the case. Fits over the fan beautifully, not too thick, does the job very well. Let me show you what it's from. This will make you laugh. It's rather silly as it appears. This is the solution, believe it or not. One of those little yummy desserts. Have you noticed though, being sensible now, this is a very strong, clear perspex pot. It's actually the right size to take one of the fans. So all you actually have to do is to trim off the edge, sand it down, give it a good spray paint, obviously after you've eaten this lovely little dessert and also trimmed it down to size. Oh well, no way back now. That's the guide hole I've made, because I've got to rest the console board in place and then cut the hole around it at the back. I didn't want to have to do it, but there really wasn't much choice. If I'd had a really tiny fan like I used on that Dreamcast project, you can do it, but the problem is that the fan is a bit noisy. It doesn't matter with the Dreamcast because it's so noisy anyway, but it does with this type of system. It also had to be extremely flat in order to fit inside there. It just wasn't going to be feasible. So it's much better to use the 40mm fan. It's a very quiet one. It will do the job much better. It just means external mounting. So anyway, I've cut these guide holes. I'm going to turn the system over and very carefully cut out a circle to represent roughly the size of the fan itself, and then mount it in position. Whether you suck air in or blow the air out, I mean, there's always a sort of debate on that side. I've tended to work on the basis before of sucking air out of a portable, but in this case, because I want to actually cool the copper plate down, I think it's probably on reflection going to make more sense to suck air in order to keep the system cooler. So that's what I'm going to do. This is the guide hole that I made in the case earlier. What I now need to do was to position the top assembly so that it's going to be dead centre in the case. That's between the two speaker sides because those are already central. Cut out a hole which I've marked so far in pen. It doesn't have to be absolutely exact, but that represents the size of the fan itself. So when this is up or down a couple of millimetres, it won't make any difference. However, it does give me a guide point, and I need to be very careful cutting this out so that I don't harm any electronics or wires underneath. So I just need to go down by about 1 or 2 millimetres, that will cover it. I don't need to finish it off because it's not going to be visible. The fan will then be assembled inside here. I'm going to put some tiny pieces of corners on each of these places, and that will give me an adhesion point so that I can stick it onto the case. So the hole is now cut. So it's almost enough to make you cry really, but had to be done. Anyway, you can see through here, those are the connections for the cartridge slot. So there is enough space there for some air to get through. A little piece of the copper that's remaining from the expansion pack, and again that will get a little bit of the cool as well, and some general circulation through that area. So as mentioned, going to get the fan in place. It's all going to be covered, it's all going to be concealed, and it's going to look nice. I had to do this a couple of times. First time I didn't get it quite perfect. It's now equidistant to the edge of the case. Just want to show you some glamour shots really, just moving the camera around. You can see it's all very well integrated, it's all nice and flush. The shape actually I think quite complements the shape of this case, and of course because this is in the centre, it's well away from the finger holds. Actually I think I've done a very good job on this. I like it. Don't look good.